So some prep work to getting things ready for lifting the roof back in place. Since we needed 4 mounting points, we only had 2 of them, but we'd lift off with the excavator. A couple of more of the metal sheets were removed, and then a few straps and some chains and stuff were brought out. And did a temporary connection because we couldn't find jackal to do the final. The forwarder was brought in to lift things up and see how we did run into the camera on me. But my dad had taken some pictures so he could send to the guy he had talked to that he knows, who has a couple of cranes, so he could be prepared for what he was about to lift. So he was gonna come by when he had some other work in the area. Couldn't justify the cost of bringing him, especially just for us. We needed to get an extra ring and a couple of more shackles, and had an old rusty chain and so on. We tried hammering out the lock shackle that held things in place, but that was a no-go, so we ended up going with the cutting disc and cutting it apart. My dad, I was busy preparing with the plants, and my dad had started preparing some things. Had also ordered a markup of the electrical cable feeding the house, because we're gonna dig a little and feed electricity to this building now that it is in better condition, and maybe the car will be parked here, and it would be good to have the electric engine heater possible to use in the winter. He had installed a door on the outhouse section, reused the old door, and had to do some extra trimming around the sides. When he tried to fix the back entrance to the outhouse section, he had done some hammering to get the thing in, and the wall had shifted a little. It's kind of weak joints when they have this many openings, but we pulled it back in, and we're gonna put a little bit of reinforcement in some of the corners. And crane arriving. I had my sister and little niece visit here, so they got to see the big crane operate. So he has bigger cranes also, but with what he could see, he thought he could do it with this, but it was right on the limit, this size of the crane. It kept beeping a little here and there, and so. But then as he started to lift it up, he had the support leg here that as it wanted to come up, it wanted to kind of touch the support leg for the crane a little, so, and I added a little string to be able to help guide it when it was up in the air. But once he was able to get it up past that support leg and could bring it a little bit closer to the crane base, after that it went fine, swinging it around and getting it in place, even if you had to keep it very tight to the machine to not go too far out with this weight, so it was a little tricky. But the crane operator was very good and was calm. My dad ended up going inside and put up a board as a guide as he was getting close, so it would be easier to land it. And the crane operator was a little worried he wouldn't have the reach required to get it into its final position, so we had discussed before this if we would have had to land it and reposition the crane, but as we started getting closer and he got a little bit of weight laying down on one side, and he could extend it a little bit and kind of drag it into place. You hear it's beeping here and eventually it cuts off. He didn't have a scale on the crane, so I didn't get a weight on the roof section. And when the crane refused to go any more, we've just had centimeters and some pry bars and so on were used, and it was possible to shift it a little bit. The top log at the far end, because of the slight dragging, had shifted a little, so I could get a small sledgehammer and give that a few taps, and it sprung back to position, and the roof could be lowered down into position. So all in all, it went very well. One of the joints might have suffered a crack in it because of this, but we can't complain. It's in place, looks good. And the camera stayed on. That's the most surprising part. So with the roof in place, the crane could be lower and disconnected, and then we helped him pack up so he could leave. And my niece wanted to check out the new building. Yeah, packing up, making sure he gets all the things he brought with him. We were expecting some heavy rain the night after this was lifted in place, so we were a little bit stressed to get the roof sections in place and remove the rigging equipment and crowbar and opening things up a little to get the slings out of place, and the chains were dropped down also. Yeah, and my dad had installed top sheet. It was just the roof sheets that had been cut and bent over, so the uppermost part, but he did that while the roof was still on the ground, and a lot easier to work with, because being this high up you can get hurt if falling. So yes, the chains were just dropped, and the sheets could be starting to be put back into place. Now we didn't have the correct screws for them, so it was a temporary installation, and we need to revisit this, because if we get some heavy winds at some point, I don't think they will stay where they are. But at least this project seems to be getting underway. And as I remind everyone, if you view this and have any questions, don't hesitate to write a comment, even if the YouTube comment sections and so on seems to be, I don't really get along with it, but maybe that's just me. Clean up, removing everything from where the roof had been resting. Some parts were just gonna burn because they are in bad condition, and there was a little bit of wood there. The top part of the separation wall in the outhouse had been left out because it might have interfered with getting the roof back in place, so it took some sledgehammer work, and I had my little niece running around, so focus on camera work was very low, but it was set up there with a bore angle. The chains were put back into storage. And now now it's usable space in here. Had some old shelf my sister was getting rid of, and I assembled it. It was disassembled, but I assembled it in the new garage. Not wasn't sure I was gonna put it and if it was gonna stay here, or but I decided to bring it up to the other garage, a shelf for motorcycle spare parts up on the top level. Storage is always good when you tend to end up with a lot of spare parts and old stuff. And with the excavator back out of the forest and the electrical cable marked out, we could dig a trench for the electrical feed to this building. We ended up also putting down a plastic hose if something more will be sent that direction in the future, or if there is an issue with the electrical feed we have. So, well, my dad had flashbacks from last summer's digging for the internet, being down in the trench, getting shell shocked, because that was a bigger project. And then trying to clean things up a little and fill up the trench. It just needs something to do doors, because the opening is too big now, and if we're gonna extend them or build new doors, we'll see.